Did you know Japan's most powerful crime families once turned Tokyo into a war zone with machine guns? In 1984, the mighty Yamaguchi-gumi Yakuza clan split apart when leader Hiroshi Yamamoto broke away to form the rival Ichiwakai. What started as a business dispute quickly exploded into open warfare. For 4 years, traditional honor codes collapsed as assassins roamed the streets with automatic weapons. The violence peaked when gunmen attacked Yamaguchi-gumi headquarters with machine guns, spraying bullets in broad daylight. But nothing shocked Japan more than the January 1985 Osaka hotel incident. Armed men stormed into a crowded lobby and opened fire with assault rifles. Innocent civilians dove for cover as bullets shattered windows and marble walls. The brazen attack in front of terrified families crossed every line. Police launched the largest organized crime crackdown in Japanese history. Mass arrests followed as authorities declared war on both factions. The Yamaichi War ended Yakuza's untouchable status forever. Modern anti-organized crime laws emerged from those 4 bloody years. Japan learned that even ancient criminal codes couldn't survive modern firepower. Did you know a son's betrayal brought down America's most powerful crime family? In the late 1990s, Frank Calabrese Jr. sat across from his father in a federal prison visiting room. But this wasn't an ordinary family visit. Hidden in his pocket was a recording device, capturing every word as his father detailed 18 brutal murders. For months, Frank Jr. endured the psychological torture of secretly recording the man who raised him. His father bragged about torture killings, including the savage murder of Anthony Spilotro, buried alive in an Indiana cornfield. Each confession was another nail in the Chicago outfit's coffin. The FBI called it Operation Family Secrets, and it was about to destroy a criminal empire. In 2007, Frank Jr. walked into a federal courtroom and testified against his own father. The moment he spoke, 5 family bosses knew their fate was sealed. All received life sentences based on his testimony. One son's courage ended the Chicago outfit's century-long reign of terror. Did you know America's most powerful union boss vanished in broad daylight and was never seen again? On July 30th, 1975, Jimmy Hoffa left his suburban Detroit home for what he thought was a routine meeting. The Teamsters president was heading to the Machu's Red Fox restaurant to meet with mob figures Anthony Provenzano and Anthony Giacalone. The FBI had warned him about rising tensions over union control, but Hoffa brushed off their concerns. He arrived confident, expecting to negotiate another deal with organized crime, but his meeting partners never showed up. Witnesses watched him pace outside the restaurant, making increasingly frantic phone calls from a payphone. His voice grew more agitated with each unanswered call. At exactly 2:45 in the afternoon, someone finally arrived. A maroon Mercury pulled up to the curb. Hoffa was seen getting into the car with unknown men. That was the last time anyone saw him alive. Within hours, a massive search began that would become America's longest missing person case, exposing decades of corruption between organized labor and the mob. Did you know a bank robbery created a psychological phenomenon that changed hostage negotiations forever? On August 23, 1973, Jan Erik Olsson walked into Creditbanken in Stockholm with a submachine gun. His demand was simple: release his imprisoned friend or the hostages would pay. For 6 days, he held 4 bank employees captive in the vault, but something unexpected happened. Instead of terrorizing them, Olsson showed kindness. He gave them jackets when they were cold, let them walk around, even shared jokes. The hostages began to trust him more than the police outside. On day 4, hostage Kristin Enmark did the unthinkable. She called Prime Minister Olof Palme to criticize the police tactics while still held captive. When the final assault came, the hostages actually shielded Olsson from police gunfire. They defended their captor against their rescuers. This bizarre psychological transformation baffled experts worldwide. Today, we call it Stockholm Syndrome. One failed bank robbery revolutionized our understanding of victim psychology forever. Did you know a children's playground became ground zero for Canada's deadliest biker war? In 1994, Maurice Boucher made a chilling decision that would terrorize Quebec for 8 years. The Hells Angels leader chose to escalate their war with the rock machine, using car bombs in crowded city streets. Professional bomb makers crafted sophisticated devices hidden in jeeps and motorcycles, turning Montreal into a battlefield. Over 160 people died as the violence spiraled out of control. Police seemed helpless against the coordinated attacks hitting restaurants, bars, and busy intersections. Then on August 9, 1995, everything changed. A Jeep bomb exploded outside a biker hangout, but the shrapnel traveled further than planned. 11-year-old Daniel Desrochers was playing nearby when metal fragments tore through his body. The innocent boy's death finally shocked authorities into action. Operation Shah QC launched the largest organized crime investigation in Canadian history. Boucher received life in prison, and both criminal empires crumbled. One child's tragedy ended a war that had consumed an entire province. Did you know a Canadian with no criminal record nearly fooled the entire US Treasury using just a Xerox machine? In 1976, Frank Bourassa was an ordinary businessman who made an extraordinary discovery. He realized that high-end Xerox copiers could reproduce Treasury bonds with stunning accuracy. For months, he studied authentic bonds like a master craftsman, analyzing every watermark and security feature. He sourced specialized paper that matched the government's exact specifications. When Bourassa finally printed his first batch, the results were flawless. Banks across the country began accepting his counterfeit bonds without question. Millions of dollars in fake securities flooded the market, and nobody suspected a thing. But the Secret Service noticed something was wrong when too many identical bonds appeared. Under microscopic analysis, they found one tiny flaw in the Xerox reproduction process, a barely visible printing defect that led them straight to Bourassa's operation. His arrest shocked investigators who realized how close he came to breaking the system. One man with office equipment had nearly outsmarted the US government. Did you know the biggest train robbery in history started with a simple traffic light? In August 1963, Bruce Reynolds and his gang planned the perfect heist targeting the Glasgow to London mail train. They studied the route for months, choosing a remote signal at Bridego Bridge as their strike point. On the night of August 8th, they tampered with the signal lights, forcing the train to stop exactly where they wanted it. But when they attacked the driver and broke into the high-value package coach, they couldn't believe their eyes. Instead of the expected few £100,000, they found over £2.5 million in cash, 120 mail sacks stuffed with money. In just 15 minutes, they loaded everything into their trucks and vanished into the night. They retreated to Leverslade Farm, thinking they'd pulled off the perfect crime. But they made one fatal mistake. They left fingerprints on a Monopoly game at the hideout. Within months, most of the gang was behind bars. The money, most of it was never found. Did you know the most famous art theft in history was pulled off by a janitor with no plan? In 1911, Vincenzo Peruggia worked maintenance at the Louvre in Paris. For months, he studied the guards' routines, memorizing every shift change and blind spot. On Monday morning, August 21st, he simply walked into the Salon Carré during closing time. He lifted the Mona Lisa off the wall, slipped it under his white work coat, and strolled out. Security guards saw him leaving, but assumed he was moving paintings for photography. For 24 hours, nobody even noticed it was gone. When visitors asked where the famous painting was, staff thought it was being photographed. 2 years later, Peruggia contacted an Italian art dealer, believing he was returning stolen Italian heritage. The dealer's hands trembled when he realized he was holding the real Mona Lisa. Peruggia was arrested immediately, but the theft made the painting world famous. He served only 7 months in prison for the crime of the century. Did you know the greatest diamond heist in history took 2 years of planning and was undone by a single receipt? In 2001, Leonardo Notarbartolo posed as a wealthy diamond merchant in Antwerp, Belgium. For 2 years, he rented an office in the Diamond Center, studying every detail of their legendary vault. 10 layers of security protected over $100 million in diamonds. Heat sensors, magnetic fields, motion detectors, and a massive steel door stood in his way. But Notarbartolo and his School of Turin gang had a plan for everything. They used hairspray to blind the heat sensors and custom tools to bypass the alarms. Over one weekend in February 2003, they drilled through the vault floor like ghosts. They walked away with $100 million in diamonds and precious stones. The perfect crime, until Notarbartolo made one fatal mistake. He left a receipt in the forest with his DNA on it. Police traced it back to him within weeks. Today, most of those diamonds are still missing. The greatest heist brought down by the smallest detail. Did you know an American soldier pulled off one of history's greatest art heists while wearing a US Army uniform? In April 1945, Lieutenant Joe Meader discovered something extraordinary in a cave near Quedlinburg, Germany. Medieval treasures worth $200 million, hidden by locals from advancing Allied forces. Instead of reporting the find, Meader saw an opportunity. For months, he carefully packaged priceless manuscripts and artifacts, mailing them home piece by piece using military postal privileges. Nobody questioned packages from a decorated officer. The treasures vanished into his modest Texas home, where they sat hidden for 35 years. Meanwhile, Germany desperately searched for their lost cultural heritage. Then in 1980, Meader died, taking his secret to the grave. His brother found the artifacts and tried selling medieval manuscripts to dealers. That single mistake triggered an international investigation. Experts immediately recognized the stolen Quedlinburg treasures. A decade-long legal battle erupted between Texas and Germany. Most artifacts were eventually returned, but some remain missing today, lost to one soldier's calculated greed. Did you know 7 people died from taking medicine that should have saved them? In September 1982, 12-year-old Mary Kellerman woke up with a headache in Chicago. Her parents gave her extra-strength Tylenol, the most trusted painkiller in America. Within hours, she was dead. At first, doctors thought it was a rare illness. Then more bodies started dropping. Adam Janus collapsed after taking Tylenol. His brother and sister-in-law died the same way. 4 more victims followed in just 3 days. Investigators finally connected the dots. Someone was poisoning Tylenol bottles right on store shelves. They opened capsules and filled them with deadly cyanide, then put them back. The discovery triggered the largest product recall in American history. 31 million bottles pulled from every store nationwide. Panic gripped the country as copycat attacks spread coast to coast. The case changed packaging forever, but the original killer was never caught. Somewhere out there, a murderer walks free. Did you know one of America's most notorious kidnappers spent weeks watching his victim like a predator stalking prey? In 1934, Alvin Creepy Karpis and the Barker Gang had their eyes on William Ham Jr., heir to a brewing fortune. For 3 weeks, they tracked every move he made, his morning coffee, his lunch meetings, even when he left his office. They knew his routine better than he did. On June 15th, they struck. Ham walked out of his office straight into their trap. The gang demanded $100,000 in ransom, a fortune at the time. After 4 tense days, the money was delivered and Ham walked free. But Karpis made one fatal mistake. The bills were marked by the FBI. Every time the gang spent that money, they left a trail straight back to them. One by one, they were hunted down and captured. Karpis became the last man on the FBI's public enemy list to be taken alive. Perfect planning, flawless execution, but greed always leaves evidence. Did you know a 77-year-old man pulled off one of Britain's biggest heists in history? Terry Perkins was supposed to be enjoying retirement, but instead he was planning the perfect crime. Easter weekend, 2015. London's Hatton Garden was completely empty. Perkins and his crew slipped into the building through a fire escape, carrying heavy drilling equipment. They had inside knowledge of every security measure, every blind spot. Their target was a 20-ton vault door protecting millions in jewels and cash. For hours, they drilled through 6 feet of reinforced concrete, the sound echoing through empty corridors. Each obstacle they faced, they overcame with precision and patience. When that massive vault door finally swung open, they found £200 million worth of valuables waiting inside. For 3 days, they methodically emptied safety deposit boxes, filling bags with diamonds, gold, and cash. But their celebration calls were being recorded. Those triumphant phone conversations became the evidence that brought them down, the perfect crime undone by the need to brag about it. Did you know America's most wanted terrorist was caught because his own brother recognized his writing? For 18 years, the Unabomber terrorized the nation with sophisticated mail bombs that killed 3 and injured 23. The FBI had no leads until 1995, when Ted Kaczynski demanded newspapers publish his manifesto. David Kaczynski was reading the Washington Post when certain phrases jumped off the page, the writing style, the unusual words, even the arguments sounded exactly like his older brother Ted. For months, David agonized over the decision. Turn in family or let a killer continue. Finally, he contacted the FBI with his suspicions. Agents spent weeks analyzing the manifesto against Ted's old letters, finding dozens of matching linguistic patterns. On April 3rd, 1996, they raided a remote cabin in Montana. Inside, they discovered bomb-making materials, partially completed devices, and detailed journals documenting every single attack. The breakthrough came from the most unexpected source. Family loyalty didn't protect the Unabomber. It destroyed him.